it's Lisa Bentham here on our Facebook Live on a Wednesday afternoon at 3 p.m. If you are joining me live, I would love to see where you are from in the comments below. And if you watch on catch up, either on Facebook or Instagram, or perhaps over on YouTube, the IELTS Tutor Group YouTube channel, then I would still like to see your comments. I would love to know where you are tuning in from, and you can, of course, leave comments or questions, and I will do my best to answer them. I'm also doing my best to look at the camera rather than at myself. I wonder how often you perhaps do recordings on your phone. Are you good at looking at the camera, or do you tend to talk to yourself? Because when we communicate, it is all about having an interaction with someone else or a group of people. That's what language is all about. Whether we are writing to communicate with other people, but more importantly, like this live, when we are talking to other people. And the topic for today is IELTS. Surprise, surprise. But how can you improve your IELTS score? And more importantly, which part of the IELTS test can you make the most improvement on? And interestingly, I've done a lot of research this morning. Interestingly, in a study specifically focusing on Korean students studying IELTS, speaking was actually the part of the test where the students made the least improvement. That's on average anyway. And possibly because Korean students might find it very hard to find English speakers to interact with, or because I imagine the way the Korean language works and the way English as a European language works very different. I am guessing, but as a student of Chinese, I know it's just so much more difficult. It's taken me 4 years to be able to recognise Chinese characters and begin to understand how the Chinese language works. Whereas when I learned French and German at school, German's a little different, but same alphabet, generally, say German, slightly different. Similar sentence structure, and of course both are languages that I had heard living in Europe. So that's the first thing. Over a 3-month period, IELTS students, even those who were studying quite hard outside the classroom, did not make as much progress in spoken English as they may have wanted. Now, I wonder if you can imagine which part of the IELTS test this particular group of students made the most progress on. Well, I will tell you, it was academic and academic writing. Now, that's an interesting one, particularly as I have a course on academic writing, and you can find that on my website if you want to, www.ieltstutorgroup.com. But it intrigued me because academic writing is often the part of the test where students get the least marks. So it was really interesting to see that over a 3-month period, that's where the average mark between those students increased the most. I wonder if you can think about why that might be true. Well, academic writing is definitely something that you can study on your own. You can have textbooks, you could have a course, you can go on YouTube and find lessons. And it is very much something where you can study and practice to make improvements. I would say you still need a very good teacher or marking service, because as you practice your writing skills, you need really detailed feedback on what you've done well to motivate you, and I'll come back to motivation in a minute, but also what you need to do next. When you're writing or typing, these are my notes, but writing or typing lots of text in a second or third or fourth language, you can obviously make lots of mistakes as well as lots of good points. So a good teacher will be able to set you on track for which bits you need to improve, and perhaps what key grammar you need to learn, or what vocabulary you need to try to expand to make that improvement. And in the research that I was reading about this morning, that was a key part of the research, how teachers' feedback on student essays helped them make really good progress. And so for those of you who might be surprised at that information, you might also like to know that I think it was 1 or 2 students out of the 12 actually increased their overall band score by 1. Now, I was intrigued by that, because if you do watch my videos, and again, if anybody's joining, please let me know where you're from in the comments below. It's generally agreed that you need to allow 6 months to improve your overall band score by 1. But some very conscientious students managed to improve by 1. Generally though, the average was that in 3 months, students only improved by 0.3. And 1 student actually got a worse mark, was -1, but admitted that because his band score had been quite good at the beginning of the research, he decided not to do a great deal of work. He thought he was good enough, so he didn't need to work very hard. And so that brings me to another way you can obviously improve your band score. And I wasn't looking at the camera, I realised. I've said you do need a good teacher to give you feedback on your essays, however good you are as a self-studying student. But it is your motivation that will also help you make leaps and bounds, as we say, running ahead, getting ahead, moving faster. Your motivation. And some of that motivation, of course, is to get your band score so that you can get your visa or get your university place. But your motivation, hopefully, is also that bigger picture. You want to be able to communicate when you go to an English-speaking country. You want to be able to make friends of any international group. And, of course, the common language is likely to be English. So those students who did a lot of private study outside the classroom, and those students who had a high level of motivation, were the ones that made the really good progress, the really significant progress. And of course, again, a good teacher will help you stay motivated. A good teacher, even if they mark your essay and say, not so good this week, will then be able to say, but this was good, that was good, and if you just do this, just work on this for the next week, I will be able to increase your marks. So motivation is important. Self-study outside the classroom is important. And being kind to yourself if you do make mistakes, and also being kind to yourself in not putting yourself under too much pressure. I've spoken about this before. You can improve your band score, as we've just seen, in 3 months. The average person will improve it in 6 months. But if you can give yourself longer, then you are going to be under less pressure and have more time to learn from your mistakes and to perhaps make even more progress than you had first thought. But it's really interesting as well looking at some of the facts that I was researching today. So, for instance, what level are you at the moment? Are you an A1, a B1, a C1, or an A2, B2, C2? Fast learners might take only 95 hours to move from A1 to A2. 95 hours, that's like 2 full weeks in the classroom. But that same fast learner might take 190 hours, so more than double, to move from A2 to B1. And that's very interesting because I was speaking to a prospective student at the weekend, and that's exactly the journey that he's on, from A2 to B1. But researchers suggest that's going to take 190 hours. And this is all from the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. That's quite a long title, isn't it? A bit like IELTS. But it's based on research. And interestingly, the US Foreign Service Institute, which obviously trains people up in other languages, has estimated that to get to a B2 level, it takes about 600 hours of classroom instruction, in other words, classroom lessons, over 24 weeks or 6 months. So it's something you do have to think about. And the harder the English, or the higher and more sophisticated your level, being at C1, you are probably not going to progress quite as fast as you did when you were going from A1 to A2. Because at C1, your level of English is excellent. Certainly will get you around the UK or the US, New Zealand or Australia. But of course, your improvements are going to be with more complex grammatical structures and the subtleties of the English language and idiomatic communication. And all that takes so much longer to learn and often does only come when you're interacting with English speakers on a daily level. But your bit is the motivation. You can do that. You can do the study outside the classroom. And it's really interesting to think that of the 4 skills that IELTS tests, the 2 productive ones, speaking and writing, where you have to give the output, are almost set against each other. Writing, you can make great progress. Speaking progress is much less significant and much slower. However, I've got quite a lot of notes here, but I'm not going to go through all of it. There are ways in which you can interact with native speakers. One of them is what you're doing now. If you're reading the subtitles, well, that's great. You are reading English. Even better if you can listen, because you can begin to hear the way we speak in English. Shakespeare was great at writing English the way we speak it. And it actually sounds like the beat of a heart. I'll probably do a Facebook Live or a top tip on that another time. But you need to listen to the stresses in English. You need to listen to, how I might say, the undulation of sound in English. And you need to also listen to the word order and the way I may ask a question. Because when you do your speaking test, you are assessed on your pronunciation. And that is only going to get better by listening to native English speakers and then practicing your own pronunciation. And if you're doing it on your phone, listen then. How much does this sound like the IELTS tutor, Lisa Bentham? How much does this sound like my favourite American actor? How well am I speaking English? Because your vocabulary could be brilliant, really brilliant. Your grammatical structure in your sentences might be brilliant. But if you have not got the intonation and pronunciation like an English speaker, you will lose marks. And if you want to scroll through some of these videos or go to my YouTube channel, there is a very short video on intonation and there's another one on pronunciation. But there are ways, as I've said, that you can interact with native speakers wherever you are in the world. Perhaps you love gaming. Well, find somebody to game with using English. There are lots of places where you can interact, obviously sometimes by texting, I know, but where you can speak live with somebody. You know, you can have a WhatsApp chat. You can have live communication, as I'm doing, on Facebook and Instagram. So be brave and get yourself into situations where you do have to use English. I know it's scary. I'm always reluctant to speak the other languages I may know a little, but it's the only way we can really, really communicate. And probably my Spanish, which I've never learned formally, or very formally anyway, in a classroom. My Spanish is probably better than the French and German I learned at school, because I learned Spanish communicating with Chileans when I lived in South America. So it was all practical communication and great in the sense of I learned what I needed to know, to shop, to go to the hairdresser, to go to the dentist. Probably my Spanish grammar is terrible. My French and German grammar would be much better. But my Spanish helped me live in Chile for 3 years and has since helped me have a chat with a Peruvian in China. You know, the sort of conversations you have, because I was the first person he'd met in 3 weeks who could speak a little Spanish. But enough of that. So your productive skills of speaking and writing, you know now, writing you can make great improvements in 3 months. And I do have a course, both a free one and paid one, on my website that can help you. But speaking, which is also productive, could take a little bit more time. And again, probably need a little bit more practice. So try to find that gaming partner. Try to find a group that has live rooms, hint, hint about Facebook, live rooms where you can chat. And it might take you a while. You might just want to listen first, but then hopefully you will start to speak. Because remember, however scary that feels, it's going to be far less scary than having to speak, particularly for IELTS Part 2, where you do all the talking with an examiner listening. You want to gain confidence before the big test. So, I feel I have talked about a lot of facts about IELTS today, but I thought you might actually find them useful. And I was very interested really to see that writing could be the part of the test where you do make the most improvement. And I'm actually quite confident about that because I spent months writing a course about that. But interestingly, I've just said really it takes so many hours both in the classroom and outside or online with a course to make progress. And there aren't really any ways to, you know, concertina that, to make it shorter, unless you can go and live in the UK, the US, New Zealand or Australia for 6 months. That will just move your language abilities on. But that's probably why you need your IELTS. And reading this report, I smiled because my academic course is called Fast Track Your Way to Success. But I'm not suggesting there is a fast and easy way to improve your writing. What I know about that course is I have focused on every aspect of academic writing that you need to know. So it's fast in the sense that you're not looking for 101 lessons on YouTube, even though there are some very good ones out there. You have me as the teacher taking you step by step through that course. There is a workbook to help, and there is a Facebook group where you can connect with me and ask questions. So when you see Fast Track Your Way to IELTS Success, whether it's my course, a textbook, or somebody else's course, remember that is a teacher telling you clear steps to make progress, but you still have to study. Buying a course or buying a textbook does not mean you will improve by 1 or 2 band scores. You've got to put the work in. You've got to learn. And more importantly, with speaking particularly, you have to try and practice. So I hope you found that useful. Again, love to know where you're from. There will be a link in the comments where you can pick up my free PDF to help you with academic writing and avoid the most common mistakes. And if you like these tips, do please go over to the IELTS Tutor group on YouTube and subscribe so you know when the latest videos come out. And there should be 4 key teaching videos coming out by the end of February, or certainly by mid-March. So keep posted, and thanks very much for listening. Bye for now.